how to find the right plan in the middle game, what to focus on to outplay your opponent. In this video I want to share with you the 3 questions method that has been proven to work efficiently on all chess levels that you should apply into your games. Moreover, I'm gonna show you exactly how I do it during a real chess game so that you can do the same. What's up, chess player, and welcome to the Journey to Grandmaster, the place where you can improve every single aspect of your chess game. We are gonna play as white today, and I'm gonna comment all of my decisions in the process. We are gonna use the method of 3 questions. I have made a video about it in terms of strategy, in terms of theoretical background, but now I want to show you how to use it in real practical game. So the method I have learned from Jacob Ackert in his amazing book, Thinking Inside the Box. The method consists of 3 important questions that you should constantly think about in your own games. The first question is, what are the weaknesses? And it applies both to your position and your opponent's position. The second one is, what is your opponent's idea? So important, so many players are missing this point. And the third one, what is the worst placed piece? And that also applies in the first part to your position, but also to your opponent's position. So, of course, you don't think about those questions from the very first move. You rather want to bring all of your pieces into the game and focus on what is really important in the opening, namely control the center, develop all of your pieces as fast as possible and as active as possible, and bring your king to safety. Those are the 3 things we should always focus on in the opening. Let me show you how you do that first, and then we continue with a method of 3 questions which starts from the middle game. Okay, so we have here the semi-Slav. By the way, very solid opening for black. I love it. Let's try to play e3, or maybe we go bishop g5. Yeah, let's play bishop g5. Let's try to be more active today, more aggressive, and try to crush our opponent. But it also applies to the main opening principles. We are developing a new piece, and we are finding the most active square for it. Now, black could have taken on c4. Instead, they played h6. And now we have a choice between taking the knight on f6 and bishop h4. Let's play bishop to h4 and see what happens there. We don't want to exchange the bishop for a knight without any significant reason, so let's not do that. Now, there might be some difficulties with this pawn taken on c4. Our opponent doesn't go for it, and now we have rather a normal position, somewhat from the queen's gambit declined, but they don't really play it that way, playing c6 that early, and then taking on c4 without me wasting a tempo with my bishop first. This is normally not a great strategy, although of course completely possible. Now we have a choice where to put the bishop. In every case, the bishop should be good to go. I don't know, I like bishop to e2 more because it feels to be more flexible. It's not gonna get into attack like it could potentially on d3, and maybe it has some ideas of transferring the bishop all the way to f3. Okay, bishop b7. Yeah, of course, black's dream is to play c5. If he can play c5 without any real problems, then he is completely fine. That's, by the way, to the method of 3 questions. What is the worst piece? Well, here in this type of structure, it's always and always this bishop on b7. So all black wants to achieve is to free it up, to make it actually the best piece on the board after the move c5, and all white is trying to achieve is to stop that from happening, or at least making it not that great. So the first question I have is e4. That seems like an active move, but unfortunately my opponent has b4. I can continue with e5, he takes here, I take there. Something crazy is going on. He takes here, I take here, he has a check, and then he takes my rook. That is a bad variation. Normally you should not attack and go all in the center, whereas your king is still in trouble, still in the center, not castled, not secured. So remember, please, always to make sure your king is in safety, because you should treat it like your child. It's not ready for the war. You should first bring it to safety, make sure there is no trouble, and then you can focus your mind all in on the active things, on attacking, on going into the war with your opponent. So that also suggests that I castle here, but I at the same time don't want my opponent to allow that whole plan we were talking about. So thinking how to make it possible, I need to stop the move c5. I can try to do that with knight e5, so that after a6 I play bishop f3 and I pin the bishop over there, but still queen protects and then c5 is... Now let me just castle, because I guess he's still not fully ready for c5 here. He's playing knight to d3. Yeah, that is, by the way, the disadvantage of the move bishop e2 comparing to bishop d3, that I don't have this e4 move. So now that my development is more or less over, I need to think about the plan for the middle game. How do I attack? Where are the weaknesses once again? That is always the first question. And what is your opponent's idea? Here it all comes together to this move c5, because c6 is a weakness for my opponent. My opponent's idea is to play c5 to get rid of it, and the worst placed piece is this bishop on b7 that is completely stuck now, but if you play c5 it's going to become a great piece. So for me it's all about stopping that from happening. Can I play something like h3 and b4, or is it too weird? Probably it's too weird. He's gonna play a5 and put pressure there. So I really am a big fan of development. I think in the opening you shouldn't really invent things. Instead, you should focus on really important stuff, which is bringing all of your pieces into the game. That should be very good strategy, and very rarely it's not gonna work for you. And then you're gonna think, okay, what do I do next? Maybe, yeah, I still cannot really play e4 because of this b4 annoying idea. And then the e4 pawn would be hanging. Maybe I play knight d2, with an idea to play bishop f3 and e4 and so on. Somehow doesn't feel like... Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I can play after a6, knight c to e4. He takes, I take here, he takes back, I take with the knight, and I'm stopping the move c5. I'm achieving my goal there. So that is a good variation. I guess the problem is he's gonna play e5, thanks to the fact that my knight is no longer there. And then if I take, his knight is getting activated. He's still not playing c5, but that is already quite an achievement for him. Maybe I still play knight e4 though. Still somewhat dangerous. Can play queen to b3 and rook to d1, finishing my development, then c5. Maybe I just take. He cannot take with the knight, so bishop takes, but then bishop takes f6. That actually feels pretty annoying for him. But if before playing c5 he just improves his queen's position, then I'm kind of stuck. Like, how do I proceed? If I don't stop that, I'm busted basically. Now let me play knight d2, because it has a very clear idea. So now I'm making the second move with the same piece that I have already developed, which breaks the golden principle, one piece, one move. But I suppose I can allow myself to do that because I have almost finished the development and I need to fight against this powerful idea from my opponent. My opponent actually plays a6, which allows me to go on with my plan. I'm thinking whether I need to include a4 first, because if he plays b4, that would be great. I get initial square here, I get initial witness, but I suppose he's gonna play e5. I don't need to do that. Maybe I just play knight e4 because I try to achieve my goal. Unless I'm blundering something like knight takes e4, bishop takes e7, knight takes f2, bishop takes d8, knight takes there. And then actually if I just take back the knight, he takes back the bishop and he has an extra pawn. And if I don't, bishop e7, for example, then this pawn on e3 would be always and always hanging. I actually don't like that variation. Can it be that it doesn't work for me? But that's really bad news, because I don't really have an alternative. That, I think, yeah, I cannot actually do anything about it, because my bishop would be hanging if I play knight e4 and he takes, so I must take there, but then he takes here, he attacks here, I take back, he just takes back with the queen. If I start with the bishop to f3, then e5, e5 is very annoying. Still knight e4, takes, takes. Now I should be better prepared for that. By the way, the move e4 itself is possible, but I guess still e5 is the idea. Yeah, let me start with bishop f3. That at least stops the key idea for the time being. Also, it improves my position. Maybe after e5, I can just play knight to b3. That also controls the key square. Yeah, but not like I have a lot of active ideas in mind. Maybe d5 though. Okay, he plays rook b8, but rook b8 I don't like. I don't like it at all because I can just play bishop g3. And that at the same time stops the move e5, attacks the rook, probably goes here, but then again the bishop is hanging. That means that I get my time either to play a4, because the bishop is kind of hanging, so I'm threatening to take it twice. He's gonna protect it with the queen, then he's gonna prepare c5. So I rather spend my time on knight e4. Wait, knight e4, takes, c5, takes, 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 takes. And he has enough defenders. That's actually bad news for me. Maybe I should have played knight e4 immediately, but then I have this constant problem with the bishop on h4. Okay, then actually a4 seems to make more sense for me, because it does stop the move c5 at least for now. So the main point of the method is constantly to think about those three questions when you think about your next move. What are the weaknesses? The weakness is now the move b5, the pawn on b5, sorry. What is the worst placed piece? This bishop on b7. What is your opponent's idea? The move c5. And I consider all of those things when I think about my move. And this is exactly what you should do in your games. I understand it's not simple, and I understand that you might say, well, I don't have time for all of that, but you see here I'm playing a normal rapid game, and I have time for that, and it's very important. Yes, I'm playing much slower than my opponent, but that's not important. If you're gonna play a very good game and in the end lose on time, well, so be it. The main point is you learn a lot, then you're gonna analyze the game thoroughly to check whether your ideas actually make sense, whether the method worked correctly, and then next time you're gonna play faster, and that's all gonna be fine. So here I actually came up with this queen to b3 idea. I want to finish my development. Remember, development is always the key to success, and I hope that c5 is still not possible because I take there and then here. But now I'm noticing that there is c4 move. Although c4 I can always take. Yeah, that's true. So once again, that, bishop takes, queen takes, and I just take here on b5, and hopefully that means I get an extra pawn. Yeah, I like it. He can, of course, take there. By the way, that's more than possible. I somehow missed that move because it seems to completely destroy his pawn structure. Yeah, probably that's the reason why he missed it too. But tactically it might work because it's all about the c5 move. Now, unfortunately, I cannot play knight c4 because the queen on b6 is protected. But rook e8, yeah, is just a developing move, not really helping with the main question. Maybe I should... no, now I cannot take. He's gonna take with the c pawn. But if I play just rook d1, then I'm gonna once again allow this move. And the problem there is, well, in this line I can actually take, because then the knight is not hanging and I have rook b1. If he plays c4, I will have knight c4. Yeah, let me play rook d1. Because I bring the last piece into the game, now I'm fully developed. That's always and always what you should be aiming for in your games. Okay. By the way, maybe I had the move... No, wait, e4 is never possible because the pawn is hanging. Knight e4 now? Knight e4 actually makes sense. Maybe takes and c5, but then now takes here, takes. Somehow something should be hanging, I have a feeling, but maybe it all works tactically. e4, he plays c5. Wait, c5 I can actually take. Yeah, I'm once again blundering the fact that the pawn is hanging. I don't have... Oh, that's... Yeah, this knight on d2 is somehow annoying. Stands on the way. That means I have to push it. It stands on the way, then let's get rid of it. So I hope that in the end of the day, my opponent is still gonna get some weaknesses. For example, the b5 pawn that I could put pressure on. So I'm playing as white, I'm putting pressure on my opponent. You don't need, of course, just go all in from the very beginning and try to destroy your opponent. This strategy rarely works if your opponent is not too stupid. So what you need to do instead is to make reasonable moves, like here, the rooks are in the center, the rooks are in the center, the bishops are active along these diagonals. The knight is also in the center, the queen is active, the pawn structure is solid. And then you think, okay, what is the maximum I can take away from it? Of course, remember about the 3 questions. And also, when you're thinking about finding the move, you should always start with the most active opportunities, checks, captures, threats. Always and always remember about it, because that alone could help you significantly to, first of all, avoid 99% of the blunders, because you apply the checks, captures, threats system not only to your moves, but very, very important, to your opponent's ideas, so that you don't blunder any checks, any captures he might have. And not only you avoid the blunders, but you also make sure you don't miss great chances for yourself if you're looking at checks, at captures, and at threats first. Checks and captures, pretty straightforward. Threat is when you're creating an opportunity to do something dangerous for your opponent the very next move, either a check or a capture or something else. Yeah, now my opponent is thinking for a long time. By the way, I have to say that he's playing very strong so far. He's 2000 rated, but yeah, he's playing much stronger than that. The only problem is he has disconnected. If he is gonna disappear from the game, that would be very, very sad. Yeah, now he's back. I mean, thank God, please play the game till the end, because it seems to be a very instructive one. So he's thinking whether this whole c5 idea at some point after the exchange or not can work or not. Now I have a choice. I can take with the bishop and with the knight. Probably I should have thought about it before, but better to think about it now than not at all. I actually wanted to take with the knight, but that kind of blocks the bishop. If I take with the bishop, then c5 is still not that great, although we have c4. Yeah, hard to say. I don't like it. Okay, let me just go for my initial idea. What happens? Maybe I'm not achieving much, so... Because it seems like c5 is possible in the end of the day. Although, still in the end of the day, I'm going to be the one who is going to create some pressure, attack this b5 pawn. because yeah, just takes, takes, knight takes, bishop takes, queen takes, and then this guy on b5 is much weaker than the one on b2. Also, I can just relocate my bishop to e5, controlling the entire diagonal. You don't want to play f6 because that's gonna weaken your pawn structure. I have the d file open, so I still have some opportunities. Imagine how cool it would be to play chess without ever having opening troubles again. What if I told you I could teach you all openings you will ever need in just 10 days? You get lifetime access to more than 110 pure value video tutorials, almost 100 practical tasks to apply your knowledge immediately into practice, 30 plus bonus videos to dive 10 times deeper, as well as private community where all questions you might ever have are answered daily. Get a $200 limited time discount with the link in the description and forget about all opening pain once and for all. Very important, I hope that after c5 and 8xb he doesn't have c4 because I can just take it. Now bishop d5, I'm gonna take, sacrifice my queen, but take... Ah, wait, I cannot do that because my rook is hanging in the end of the day. I'm gonna give up too much material. That means... Yeah, don't have anything. That means that I have to start with d takes c, knight takes, but then in the end of the day I would be able to take on b5. Anyway, my opponent stops all of my ideas thinking with the move a5, but that's something completely different from what I was expecting. First of all, why can't I just play knight to d6 or bishop to d6? Remember that the most important thing is to stop the move c5, and it seems like I'm achieving that with both of the moves. Knight d6 is forcing him to exchange, but then I have a pair of bishops, and bishop c5 could be my next move. I really love that. I don't like what he's... Wait, let me check. Takes, c5. I mean, to say the least, this pawn is going to be horribly weak comparing to the previous variation, so a5 can never be an improvement. It can be an idea if you want to play b4, but why on earth would you do that? You should play c5. That is, remember we talked about what's your opponent's idea. c5 is my opponent's idea, but he doesn't know about that. Because now I can just play bishop c5 anyway. If he exchanges, I just take with the rook. This pawn is a weak for eternity. Maybe he argues for e5 instead, but what about this bishop? Okay, so c5 is kind of... Wait, it's not actually an idea, because I can take there and take here. Because if it's not, then I would rather play just rook c2 and rook c1. Or better to say c5, I take here first, attacking the queen, he takes here, I take again, takes with the rook, I take again, and then if he takes, I win the bishop, if he takes my bishop, I win the exchange, or actually the entire rook. Okay, so c5 is not a threat. Then I have time. e5, I'm gonna take, knight takes. Wait, e5, I have bishop g4. Yeah, let's just play rook c2. I have to speed up a little bit because, well, in the end of the day, time is also important if you want to win the game. But if you can get a very good position from where it's simple for you to play and you have the advantage, then it's definitely worth investing. Now it seems like my opponent is coming here to d5, but I'm gonna just play e4 and get rid of it. I don't understand his strategy at all. And I notice it so often that in the opening, low-rated players are playing pretty strong, maybe because they just know what they're playing. But towards the middle game and especially the end game, they start to make very weird mistakes. This is exactly what happened here, so he's probably already losing that pawn there. 5, or maybe I should have even just played bishop g3. Because now after 95, yes, I can win a pawn, but that's going to be a double pawn. And also my opponent is going to activate. No, yeah, I should have played bishop g3. That was cleaner. Because now after 97, I can come back to d6 and say, do you want to repeat the moves? And if he does, then I'm gonna play bishop g7. Also, this is a perfect type of position where you think in terms of do not hurry. You don't need to grab that c6 pawn immediately at all costs, because yes, you're winning an extra pawn, but your opponent is going to get rid of all his problems. Remember, what are the weaknesses? The very first question. This is the weakness, the biggest one in the position. And remember, another question, what is the worst placed piece? This is definitely this bishop on b7. And so if you take, you cash in, but you are solving both of your opponent's problems. So don't do that too early. Rather, try to improve the position till it's just so strong and then cash in. Okay, he plays 95. Yes, the knight is looking great, but it's not really doing anything. I can always kick it away. But I'm going to start with rook c5. I want to triple along the c file as long as his knight is not on d7. I can do that. Maybe he's going to play... Yeah, but now if he removes the knight, then once again I'm going to just take... Now it will be probably a good moment just to take on c6, join extra pawn, and also my bishop is strong. If not, I'm gonna just triple, I'm gonna make a luft for my king, not in a hurry, in the right moments, I'm gonna play e4 and try to break through. Maybe I can even remaneuver my queen somewhere here, my bishop here, and start to think about some checkmating ideas. I have so many plans. Yeah, the only thing I didn't like is this bishop on e5. I should have placed it here immediately. Although I don't actually mind this move f6. It's yet another commitment, and that creates a weakness in my opponent's camp, which is not necessarily a great thing for him. Okay, my opponent plays king h8, which makes sense in terms of going away from this diagonal, but it doesn't solve the problem of this weakness. Maybe I can just play queen c2 for now, and even queen g6. Remember about my checkmating plans? Well, with the move f6, they become much more real, because all I need is just bring the queen there, bishop. If you play f5, then you're going to be forever weak there because of this bishop on e5. It's so difficult to give a good advice for black. Also, it's a classical example of two bishops advantage, which I am now showing you how to use in real games. So when to use this do not hurry method? When your opponent doesn't have any counterplay, even like remotely absolutely no idea, as you see he plays rook to a8 here. In such a position, he doesn't have any breakthroughs, then you can just slowly improve your position step by step, and only in the right moment you should try to go all in into the attack and try to destroy your opponent. Otherwise, just improve step by step. I'm not sure even whether queen g6 is necessary immediately, because yeah, maybe he has some ideas like knight e7, although now I'm thinking queen to f7, and then the knight cannot go anywhere because the bishop is suddenly hanging. Yeah, and here bishop there, you basically must play f5. But maybe he's hoping to exchange the queens. Yeah, probably that is his plan. What about e4? He has to go here. Maybe, no, d5, I don't really want to open up. e5, but then f5, and knight comes back too. Although I'm also attacking here. Yeah, I have so many ideas. Now it's important not to spoil it. Let's start with h4. That's creating a Luftmarking, just in case. And also it's covering this square here, so that when I play that, plays f5, he doesn't have the queen g5 idea. It does still have queen to f6. Maybe I should be smart, or maybe I should play bishop d3 so that f5 doesn't come with the tempo, because if it doesn't, then after f5 I just play bishop e5, that is hanging. That would be a monster bishop. I just don't want to allow my opponent to exchange the queens. Although in this variation, I'm no longer allowing that because I have the h5 square. So bishop e4, f5, bishop somewhere back, I don't know, let's say back to f3, queen f6, I just play queen to h5, and the next move is bishop to e5. Yeah, I just get through, and maybe even play e4. I like it. So h4 was necessary because queen g5 would really force me into the queen exchange. Our opponent is gone again. Probably he is scared of losing this position, but I really hope he comes back. Yeah, he does. Because it feels like a strategic masterpiece so far. So we are using this huge strategical liability, the c6 pawn, this worst placed piece, the bishop, and now we are trying to create a second weakness. Very important in chess, the principle of two weaknesses. So yes, there is one, but if your opponent just gathers all of the pieces to defend it, then you cannot really win just based on this one weakness. So what you do instead is create another one, and then you are winning. Okay, so I guess I go for that. Maybe f4 after f5. But I just come back. No, that cannot be good. In every case, opening up the position cannot be good for my opponent because I have a pair of bishops, I have a safer king. Maybe queen f6, queen h5, and then f4. That makes more sense. But even if I just exchange knight takes, just don't move, queen g4, the knight is hanging, the rook is controlling the 5th rank. That cannot work for him. I don't believe in it. Actually protected the pawn on a5 there. I don't even remember. Was it hanging at some point? Or here? Ah, no, the queen was there. So he protected it to be able to move the queen. But that is another, like this entire rook should be standing there in the corner doing nothing but just protecting this little guy on a5. That's also very sad fact for black. But yeah, maybe I shouldn't have allowed this whole activity. Also, what I should be careful with is idea for him to exchange to catch my queen, like queen f6, queen h5, and if he plays king h7 and g6, then suddenly my queen is completely trapped. Yes, maybe bishop e4 wasn't necessary. Maybe the slower way, remember, to not hurry, with bishop e2 and bishop d3 makes more sense. Because if it would be white to move now, bishop e5 just finishes the game, basically. But the fact that he has one tempo, always remember about not allowing your opponents to have a lot of counterplay. That is, like, strategically, this position is completely lost. But if tactically he gets a moment, just one little moment to go forward to create a few threats, that can turn all the tables around. So you should always be careful about that. Remember, what's your opponent idea? The key question you should always be focused on in your games. Yeah, I definitely think he should go for it because otherwise he's gonna be destroyed. Yeah, goes for it. Well, actually can take the queen. And then come into the endgame where must take with the pawn probably. But I really don't want. Yes, I'm risking here. But that must work. I mean, in the worst case scenario, I of course can bring the bishop back and then get a square for my queen to go. But also bishop b5 is on my agenda. So f4 is really a critical line. No, he goes for that. So bishop here, g6 takes, but that is a much better version of the endgame. No, that endgame is just really winning. Maybe queen g6 is something I'm missing here. Yeah, but that's still a very good endgame, to be honest. At least he achieved that. That's already a great thing for him. Okay, for us it's also good because now you're gonna witness this instructive endgame and whether I'm gonna be able to convert my advantage. What is he thinking about here exactly? Yeah, finally king takes. Probably I just play e4. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I need to break through at some point. Now it's endgame. I no longer have real prospects to checkmate my opponent, so I need to get to him somewhere here. To do that, I either need to get rid of this knight, because that would open up new opportunities for me, or I need to improve my pawn structure, improve my bishop, activate it, and then maybe go all in with those pawns on the king side. But he literally almost has 0 moves to make. This is his main problem. Yet, it's still not that simple. Convert the advantage. Okay, now I can just take on c6. Takes. Yeah, I don't really get it. Yes, he gets rid of his main weaknesses and the pawn and the bad bishop, but that is still a healthy extra pawn. Maybe he decided that's a better chance. By the way, bishop to c7 was also an option. But somehow that feels more weird to my eyes, and this is very straightforward. I can even just go into the rook's endgame in the right moment. I do like my bishop on e5 though. It's just centrally placed, very strong, and protecting this weakness on d4, the isolated one. He's not careful, that one can also run. I really want to play f4, I guess. Yep. He frees his knight, but I do have a check. Play rook e7 and just take it. By the way, if you are better in the endgame with 2 pair of rooks, and you want to win the game, convert your advantage and not spoil it, then you always prefer to, almost always, you prefer to exchange a pair of rooks. That would limit your opponent's potential for counterplay, and is gonna make your life simpler. Okay, rook c6. What do you think about it? The knight cannot move because rook cheats down. And I am just attacking f6. I mean, knight h5 is the only move, not to lose the g7 and move the knight, but the knight on h5 is so horrible. Something like rook d8 should be a reasonable way, yeah, to continue the game, but I'm not obliged to take immediately. I can just play something like, I don't know, rook a7 and try to double the rooks, and at the same time just attack the pawn. Wait, I was worried a little bit that I have blundered some checkmating ideas, but I hope, yeah, now I should be very careful, but I guess I can just take. Or maybe that's dangerous. King f8? Yeah, that might be dangerous, actually. I see a funny move, bishop takes g7, but unfortunately that's checkmate in 1. So maybe rook c7 is the simplest way. Coming into the rooks and... Wait, rook takes e5 is a threat now. No, that's not the simplest way. Then f4 is the simplest way. That makes 64. Blundering that again. Yeah, I'm stupid. So that's exactly what I was telling you about the opponent's counterplay. I mean, I suppose it should still work somehow, but it's not that simple anymore. Yeah, that was stupid of me. The right idea, maybe I should have just played f3 in the first place, just stopping this knight. So always think, what's your opponent idea? Remember this question. Now I have made that mistake, maybe because of the time travel, maybe because I thought, well, he doesn't have any ideas. The knight cannot go because the g7 pawn is hanging. He just cannot allow lose that. Actually, he can. And now I thought that f4 somehow frees my king, but it doesn't. As rook takes d4, I still cannot take. Yeah, he goes for it. And that also threatens checkmate in 1. That's very annoying. Now this knight on g4 is so stable. Checkmate in 1 is coming. What do I do? Maybe I go for this position with being an exchange down, but with a very powerful bishop. I mean, I just want to take here. That Takes doesn't really work because my second rook is hanging. Now checkmate. I mean, I have to take. Cannot take back because the rook is hanging, but he has a check. My king escapes, and then I hoped to take here. And how many pawns? 2 pawns. Yeah, not that much. Because also I have some weaknesses. His rooks are becoming active. Suddenly, it's not simple at all. So always be very careful with your opponent's counterplay. Takes. But I hope at least with such a monster on e5, I shouldn't be worse in any scenario here. And also I hope for my h-passer. The only real danger is some checkmate, like, I don't know, that and that, but I hope I will always have king h3 and then I'm out of trouble. Otherwise you need to do that. That's quite a lot of moves. Okay. Maybe the other way around that, g3, but still I'm gonna have g4 square. Do I need to exchange a pair of rooks? Maybe I do. Because then no danger at all. I'm gonna attack that pawn and I have 2 passers. Yeah, that should be actually good. And that would save me from all of the checkmate issues, which is especially important if you are in time trouble. Let's take. I understand he can play rook g8, but h5, h6, bishop g7, that feels strong. Or maybe f5, king f4 also feels strong. If you allow me to take, then I'm gonna have 3 connected passers. You cannot do that. Yeah, I guess it was his mistake to allow me to exchange the rooks. Although maybe he couldn't have stopped that. I really like that. Although 5 is also strong. Because king e6, I just play h6, and there is no way to stop h7. And this way my bishop is still rock solid. Yeah, the end game is actually the part of the game that you should learn the most because it allows you to improve your chess in all aspects. You understand how the pieces coordinate, how they function, how they work, what is important. Now it's time for... wait, maybe... Now if I play f5, he has that. Not that simple. Maybe just king h4 then. And now I really want to play f5. Yeah, f5 immediately was simpler, I guess. But that should also work. 6. h6 is winning, right? I mean, yes, I understand you can play that, but just king h5. That's nothing. h7 is coming. h7 is coming no matter what, basically. But otherwise, I would have played f5 and then h6, so that's winning. Maybe I'm blundering some checkmating ideas, but I don't see it. I don't see it. I think I'm just promoting the queen. Yeah, this bishop on e5 is fantastic, controlling everything, not allowing. That rooks and exchange was the key, the last key moment in the game, stopping all of my opponent's counterplay, and I guess g3 is important here, just to make sure f4 is not hanging, and then h8 is coming next move. So exchanging the pair of rooks allowed me just to stop all of the checkmating ideas, and then my passers are just deciding the destiny of the game. g6. Now finally I promote. Oops. I guess it's time to resign from my opponent. I understand that is always tough to lose a game, but he played actually pretty good. He just was too passive throughout the whole game, and this is the key mistake that you should not make in your games. Also, always think about the method of 3 questions. By the way, how to actually implement it thoroughly in terms of all of the strategic concepts you need to know. Here I made an entire video, so important, it's gonna improve your chess instantly. Definitely take a look.